everyone, and thank you all so much for joining us on our weekly Friday webinar. Today we are here to discuss the L1a and the L1b visas for temporary workers. I am joined by our awesome managing attorney Ruby L. Powers. Just some background information on our attorney Powers. She has been licensed since 2008. She founded her firm back in 2009 and is one of the few board certified immigration attorneys here in Houston. Attorney Powers, do you want to take it away?
Yes, thanks, Daya. So this is an overview of the L1a and the L1b. And so if you're an employer, you have a small to mid-sized business or even large business, and you're looking to bring in individuals, or if you have a business abroad and you're wanting to open a new office here in the country, this is something that could apply to you. And if you and if you are a small business to mid-sized business, this is really something, whether you need to have a business in a site in a foreign country that you're wanting to transfer somebody here to the U.S. So you have to have an established business abroad that is connected to either an existing business here or you're wanting to make a new office here. That's a good way to explain it. So we're going to go over the different classifications, who's eligible, some other benefits, family considerations, new office, and blanket petitions. And, again, we always say this, it doesn't take the place of legal advice, but we want to be a resource to you. So hopefully you can get a good overview, and you can always speak with an attorney for more detailed advice for your particular situation. So the L1 and L1a and L1b are available for temporary intercompany transferees who work in managerial positions or have specialized knowledge. So the managerial is L1a and specialized knowledge is L1b. The L1a Non-Immigrant Classification enables a U.S. employer to transfer an executive or manager from an affiliated foreign office to the U.S., to an office here in the United States. So it gives them, enables the foreign company, which does not yet have an affiliated U.S. office, to send an executive with the purpose of establishing one for the new office as well. And so that is a great opportunity if a company is wanting to expand here into the U.S. market. So the magic form is the I-129, and this is one used for lots of different other purposes. So you might have seen this form before. So the managerial capacity. So this is really important. Like, you could say manager in the title, but that's not going to cut it. You need to make sure that you can establish that you have reports below you, that you are in a supervisory or managerial capacity. And even if you don't manage a lot of employees below you, and you're in a more of a high level, that you could be a manager in other capacities. So it's really important to explain this, not just through the job description, but a lot of times we have to go and explain what percentages of those tasks and duties do you spend on a daily basis or on a regular basis. So supervise and control the work of professional employees, and to manage an organization or a department, subdivision, function, or component of the organization. So it's not always maybe that you have a lot of staff below you, but you might be in charge of a component or function. And so therefore you can also be a manager in that respect. And manage is an essential function of the organization at a high level without direct supervision of others. And so that's where you don't necessarily have to have direct reports. Your employer must also meet certain qualifications, as we've slightly discussed a bit. Now the L1b, they're not necessarily the managers, but they have some specialized knowledge that's so important that you can't live without, and that you need this individual to be in your U.S. location. So the knowledge that you have about the organization's product, service, research, equipment, techniques, management, or other interests. And so this is really important because it's going to be a little harder to prove, and you need to establish this specialized knowledge exists, or an advanced level of knowledge or expertise in the organization's processes and procedures. And they also have to meet other qualifications. Now, so who's eligible? Now, this is really, really important for both the L1a and the L1b, is that they had to have worked in the organization abroad for one continuous year within the 3 years immediately before your admission to the United States. So 1 year in the last 3 years, you worked for the company abroad, and now you need to be transferred here, either in the managerial executive role of L1a or specialized knowledge for the L1b. And that's really the crux of it. So if you haven't met the 1 year in the last 3 years, maybe you're about to meet 1 year in the last 3 years, and then you'd be eligible. So a lot of times when we have individuals, companies, employers coming to talk to us, we do an analysis. We say, you know what, this might work, but we might have to wait another 5 or 6 months before we can do this. And so you need to be able to a lot of times we're having consultations, especially in the employment and investment space, where we have plan A, B, and C. And usually A and B, it's how to get to the US and get a status, and C might be later on legal permanent residency. So the application process is we prepare the I-129, and there's a filing fee for that, and then have all the required evidence and supporting document to establish that. Now, generally, so you would apply with the I-129, and this is another great thing. You can pay the $2,500 for the premium processing to get a decision within 3 business weeks. So that is really helpful, because then you either will get approval, or request for evidence, or a notice of intent to deny within a short period of time, so that you can respond and you can get the result as quickly as possible to either do a change of status or extension of stay here in the US, or you could do the consular processing abroad with a visa appointment, or for Canada at the port of entry. So this can be a little bit extensive. You need to meet the qualifications, the 1 in 3 years, either the managerial or the specialized knowledge. And you have to complete this form, and you have all the supporting documentation. And we guide you through that. But you want to do the best you can so that you can get approved and minimize the request for evidence as possible. Once USCIS receives this, then you'll get a receipt notice. And if you do premium processing, you'll be emailed that receipt number, and that's great. So then you can follow along the case. There might be biometrics, maybe not. And a lot of times there's not an interview necessarily for an L here in the country, in the US, but a lot of individuals have L interviews for the first time abroad at the consulate. And they recently came out with waiving a policy to waive renewals, extensions of L's abroad, if you've already been approved before, and they've been waiving interviews for that. So that's something else to consider. Now, what are the benefits of L? Well, it's great. So if you apply under the new office, you're coming here to establish a new office. Maybe you own the business and you're transferring yourself here to establish a new office, or maybe you're sending an employee here. They get a 1 year stay, and then they have to submit more extensions to give that renewal for more time. And the L1a is allowed to stay up to 7 years. So, and any time that they stay outside of the country, because they don't have to definitely stay in the US the whole time. I mean, obviously you have your business abroad as well, and they might be coming back and forth. That time abroad can be recaptured so that you get the maximum 7 years. Now, the family members, you can bring in your spouse and your children who are under 21. And they will be given the same stay as the employee. Now, if the child is about to turn 21 and they turn 21, then that stay will end once they turn 21. So that's something to consider. If they're here in the US, then we do a change of status or extension on the L. And then, and if also the spouse of the L1 worker is eligible to apply for work authorization. So that's awesome. That's one of the best things about the L2. Spouses can work. When you establish a new office, and I just want to go back for one other thing. When we talk about the benefits of an L, if it's an L1b, it's for 5 years. An L1a, it's 7 years. So a lot of times when I was talking about the ABC plan, right? So a lot of times people will come here on an L, and that's a dual intent visa. So if you have immigrant intent and want to get a green card, it's fine. But usually within that 5 or 7 years, it gives us enough time to apply for either perm for the L1b or another green card based provision under the L1a, showing enough employees for either a new office, a business owner, or a managerial role. So usually the 5 to 7 years is enough time if the employer is interested in petitioning for the employee for a green card for us to do that process. And so that's something you want to keep that in mind. You don't want to start too late, especially with potential audits or delays. You probably want to start your green card process about 2 years into, at the very latest, I would say, into your process. Maybe 3 years, but you've got to push it. You never know. Processing times can delay. So if that's your goal, then make sure that that's a part of your plan and you're pushing towards the green card, which is not a problem because of the dual intent. Okay, so if you come here to establish a new office, so like you have the business abroad or you're an employee abroad and you're coming here to the US, then employers have secured sufficient physical premises to house the new office. They have the employee's been employed as executive or manager for one in the last 3 years. We already mentioned that, right? And the intended U.S. office will support an executive or managerial position within 1 year of approval of the petition. So a lot of times when you open something new, it might not need this high level. It can be a little tricky because you need to have enough funds to establish that you can support this executive managerial. And a lot of times when you open an office, you don't have a lot of staff initially, and you're doing a lot in 1 year. You're trying to establish figure out the market. You're trying to get yourself known, the business known, and you're trying to get new clients or customers and grow. So that's why they give you 1 year. It's not a lot of time, but you have to establish that the company has enough funds and business and shows the business plan to support an executive or managerial position. And in saying that, you're also saying that person's not going to do all the day-to-day operations because they are an executive or managerial role and they need to be doing more of a high-level functions. Blanket petition is for certain companies. It's not for everyone, but if certain organizations can establish the required intercompany relationship in advance, they can file a blanket petition, and then they can have a lot of individuals come in on it. We're not having to do every single one filing and reestablishing. So if they have this blanket, it allows them a lot more ease. So they're engaged in commercial trade or services, have an office in the US, 3 or more domestic or foreign branches. So that's really the crux of it. So if you're a really big company with that many domestic or foreign branches and subsidiaries or affiliates, then this is something that you can consider. And so this is usually for very large companies, but it's something that exists. So anyway, that might have been a fast primer on L's, but hopefully it was helpful and it gives you a good idea of something that you might be eligible or your company might be eligible. Feel free to give us a call to go into more detail. And a lot of times we have a preliminary call and exploratory, and then we check in within a couple of weeks, or even sometimes it could be a couple of months down the road to come back and finalize the strategy. So Daya, how can they stay in touch with us and find us?
Yeah, so to stay up to date with us, go ahead and add us on all of our social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We also have a YouTube channel and a newsletter. You can find all that information on our website. We're posting a lot of good content always on our TikTok, a lot of informational videos and a lot of funny videos. Attorney Powers, she collaborates. She does all my crazy ideas.
Yes, I do. It's been fun working with you. So we've got more webinars later on in the month. What else can they learn later?
So next week, we will be discussing how to successfully respond